In the far reaches of the galaxy, where stars were sparse and the void seemed to stretch endlessly, an alien species known as the Vantari held dominion. For centuries, they had reigned supreme, their technological prowess and ruthless strategies securing their place as the undisputed rulers of the galaxy. The Vantari were a proud race, known for their cold logic and unyielding belief in their own superiority. They had subjugated countless worlds, bent entire civilizations to their will, and absorbed the best technologies from those they conquered. To them, the galaxy was theirs by right, and any who opposed them were swiftly crushed under the weight of their vast armadas. The Vantari's grip on the galaxy was tight, and they were not easily threatened. They saw themselves as the pinnacle of evolution, the apex predators in a universe full of lesser beings. Their confidence bordered on arrogance, a trait that had grown unchecked over the millennia. It was this very arrogance that led them to underestimate the significance of the discovery made by one of their exploration fleets on the fringes of known space. The fleet, a routine exploratory force sent to map out uncharted sectors, stumbled upon a massive field of debris floating in the darkness. At first glance, it appeared to be nothing more than the remnants of a long-forgotten battle, ancient and irrelevant. The Vantari commander, viewing the debris through the lens of his species' arrogance, dismissed it as the wreckage of a primitive civilization that had self-destructed eons ago. To him, it was a curiosity at best, an opportunity to salvage some ancient scrap for study, but nothing more. The mission of the exploration fleet was simple: catalog the debris, extract any useful materials, and move on. The Vantari had little interest in the history of other species unless it offered some immediate advantage. As they approached the debris field, their sensors began to pick up strange readings. The debris was scattered across an area larger than any battlefield the Vantari had ever encountered, and its composition was unlike anything they had seen before. Despite these anomalies, the commander remained unconcerned. To him, it was just another reminder of the inferiority of the species that had come before the Vantari. The fleet's scanners probed deeper into the debris field, analyzing the twisted metal and shattered hulls that floated in the void. The arrangement of the debris was odd, almost as if it had been deliberately positioned. The Vantari officers, trained to see the universe in terms of conquest and dominance, failed to recognize the subtle patterns that hinted at something more. They noted the strange energy signatures emanating from some of the wreckage, but these were dismissed as residual radiation from ancient reactors or weapons long since rendered inert. The debris, which the Vantari assumed was the detritus of a failed civilization, was in fact the remnants of an ancient human fleet, a fleet that had been deliberately hidden and preserved. The humans of that era, facing an overwhelming alien threat, had devised a desperate plan. They had camouflaged their most advanced warships as debris, spreading them across this remote sector and programming them to lie dormant until a specific signal awakened them. The Vantari, in their arrogance, were oblivious to the fact that they were on the verge of triggering that very signal. As the Vantari fleet continued its survey, the commander ordered a closer inspection of the largest fragments. These massive pieces, once the pride of the human fleet, had been designed to withstand the ravages of time. Their outer layers were corroded and scarred, but beneath the surface, the ancient technology still hummed with dormant power. The Vantari, intent on their mission, unknowingly edged closer to the trap that had been set millennia ago. The closer they got, the more anomalies their instruments detected, faint energy pulses, flickers of activity that should not have been possible after so long. The Vantari scientists aboard the fleet grew curious, intrigued by the peculiar readings, but they were still blinded by their assumptions. They believed they were dealing with nothing more than relics of a bygone era, unaware that they were about to awaken a force that had been waiting for this moment. As they prepared to send drones into the heart of the debris field, the first hints of unease began to creep into the minds of the Vantari crew. There was something about the debris, something that didn't quite fit with their expectations. The patterns were too precise, the energy readings too consistent. But the commander, driven by his species' arrogance, dismissed these concerns. After all, they were the Vantari, the masters of the galaxy. What could a field of ancient debris possibly do to them? The trap was set, and the Vantari were walking straight into it. The ancient human fleet, dormant for millennia, was on the verge of reawakening. The Vantari had no idea that their presence was the key that would unlock the dormant warships, bringing them back to life with a fury that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy. The stage was set for a confrontation that would challenge the Vantari's supremacy in ways they could never have imagined. The Vantari explorers, focused on their task of cataloging and salvaging the debris, made a fateful decision. They identified a particularly large fragment, one that seemed to be the core of whatever ancient structure had once existed here. Believing it to contain valuable information or resources, they deployed their drones to begin a detailed analysis. As the drones latched onto the fragment, their instruments began to probe its depths, searching for anything of interest. What they found, however, was something far beyond their understanding, a dormant signal, buried deep within the structure, waiting for the precise moment to be triggered. As the drones delved deeper, they inadvertently sent a pulse of energy into the fragment. This pulse, innocuous to the Vantari, was the key that had been designed to awaken the ancient fleet. The signal, long silent, suddenly flared to life, rippling through the debris field like a wave. The Vantari noticed the sudden spike in energy, but they were too slow to comprehend its significance. What they had thought was just another relic of the past was, in fact, the catalyst for the reawakening of a force that had been waiting for millennia. The signal spread quickly, connecting with nodes and relays hidden within the debris. One by one, the ancient systems began to stir. The Vantari, still oblivious to the danger, continued their operations, but they soon noticed that the debris field was changing. Faint lights flickered to life on the once dead hulks, and strange energy signatures began to emerge from within the wreckage. What had seemed like inert metal was now showing signs of life, a pulse that echoed with the remnants of a lost civilization. Inside the ancient ships, long-dormant systems began to power up. Reactors, silent for thousands of years, roared back to life. Engines, covered in the dust of ages, hummed with renewed energy. Weapon systems, once feared across the galaxy, began to come online, their targeting systems calibrating with precision. The ships, designed to endure the ravages of time, had been built with fail-safes and redundancies that ensured their survival. Now, those same systems were reactivating, bringing the full might of the ancient human fleet back from the brink of oblivion. The Vantari fleet began to pick up on these changes, their instruments detecting the growing energy readings with increasing alarm. At first, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. How could this debris, so ancient and decayed, suddenly show signs of life? The readings were unlike anything they had encountered before, and for the first time, a sense of unease began to creep into the minds of the Vantari officers. The realization that they had made a grave mistake began to dawn on them, but by then, it was too late to stop what had been set in motion. Panic set in as the Vantari frantically tried to understand what was happening. They attempted to retreat, pulling their drones back and preparing to leave the debris field, but the situation quickly spiraled out of their control. The energy readings spiked again, this time with even greater intensity, as the ancient human ships fully awakened. What had once been scattered debris was now a fleet of warships, their systems fully online and their weapons ready for battle. The Vantari fleet, realizing the danger too late, tried to disable the awakening ships. They fired upon the fragments, hoping to stop whatever was happening, but their efforts were futile. The ancient warships, designed to withstand far greater threats, shrugged off the attacks as if they were nothing. The first of the ships fully powered up, its weapons locking onto the Vantari fleet with terrifying precision. The Vantari watched in horror as the ancient ships came to life, one by one. Massive cannons that had once devastated entire fleets swiveled into position, their targeting systems locking onto the Vantari vessels. Shields, far more advanced than anything the Vantari had ever encountered, flared to life, rendering the human ships nearly impervious to attack. The debris field, once thought to be the remnants of a lost civilization, was now a fully operational fleet, and it was turning its attention to the intruders who had awoken it. The first human ship fired, a single shot that tore through the Vantari fleet with devastating accuracy. The Vantari ships, unprepared and outmatched, were obliterated in seconds. The shockwave of the attack sent the remaining Vantari vessels into disarray, their systems unable to cope with the sheer power of the human weapons. Panic turned to despair as the Vantari realized that they were facing an enemy they had no hope of defeating. The human fleet, now fully awakened, wasted no time in launching its counteroffensive. As the ships powered up, their systems synchronized in perfect unison, the vast network of warships moved as one. Each vessel, though ancient, was a masterpiece of engineering, bristling with weapons that had been designed to annihilate entire armadas. The aliens, who had only moments ago been confident in their superiority, found themselves staring down the barrels of these colossal guns, utterly unprepared for the onslaught that was about to begin. The first volleys from the human fleet were devastating. Massive energy beams, capable of slicing through the strongest of shields, lanced out from the human ships, striking the Vantari vessels with pinpoint accuracy. There was no hesitation, no mercy. The human ships unleashed their full fury, their weapons tearing through the alien defenses as if they were paper. The once proud Vantari ships, which had ruled the galaxy for so long, were shattered in an instant, their hulls splitting apart and exploding in brilliant flashes of light. Caught completely off guard, the alien fleet scrambled to mount a defense. Panic spread through their ranks as they realized the full extent of their mistake. They had underestimated the power of the ancient fleet, and now they were paying the price. The Vantari commanders barked orders, trying to rally their forces, but it was no use. The human ships were too fast, too powerful, and too well coordinated. The aliens' attempts to form a defensive line were quickly dismantled as the human fleet tore through them with surgical precision. The Vantari ships that managed to evade the initial assault tried to regroup, but they were met with an impenetrable wall of firepower. The human warships, despite their age, were equipped with advanced targeting systems that allowed them to anticipate and counter every move the aliens made. Missiles streaked across the void, plasma cannons roared, and the Vantari ships disintegrated one by one under the relentless barrage. The aliens' desperation grew as they watched their fleet be systematically obliterated. What made the human fleet even more terrifying was the strategic brilliance embedded in its programming. The ancient humans who had designed these ships had foreseen the need for adaptive and intelligent combat tactics. Each ship was equipped with sophisticated AI that could analyze the battlefield in real time, adjusting strategies and formations to exploit the enemy's weaknesses. The Vantari, accustomed to straightforward battles where their overwhelming numbers always guaranteed victory, were completely unprepared for this level of sophistication. The human fleet executed maneuvers that left the Vantari commanders baffled. Ships appeared where they were least expected, striking at vulnerable points in the alien formations and then disappearing before the Vantari could react. Ambushes were set with flawless timing, traps were laid that funneled the alien ships into kill zones, and coordinated attacks from multiple angles ensured that no Vantari ship could find a safe haven. It was a masterclass in warfare, and the Vantari were the unwilling students. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the tide had turned irrevocably in favor of the human fleet. The Vantari, who had once been the undisputed rulers of the galaxy, were now on the verge of total annihilation. Their ships, their pride, and their confidence were all being stripped away by an enemy they had never even considered a threat. The human fleet, having lain dormant for millennia, was reclaiming its place in the galaxy with a vengeance. The few Vantari ships that remained attempted to flee, but escape was impossible. The human ships, faster and more maneuverable, intercepted them with ease. The last remnants of the Vantari fleet were hunted down and destroyed, their wreckage joining the debris that now floated in the void. The counteroffensive had been swift, brutal, and decisive. The galaxy had just witnessed the resurgence of a power that had been forgotten, and the message was clear: the humans were back, and they were not to be trifled with. As the final Vantari ship was obliterated, the human fleet reassembled, its ships taking position in a formation that spoke of discipline and order. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. The galaxy would soon learn that the ancient humans, long believed to be extinct, had returned with a fleet that was more than capable of challenging the current order. The Vantari had thought they were dealing with debris, but what they had found was far more dangerous: a fleet that would stop at nothing to reclaim its dominance. The human fleet, now fully operational, prepared for the next phase of its mission. The galaxy would soon tremble before the might of an empire that had been forged in the fires of desperation and preserved through the ages. The counteroffensive had begun, and there was no force in the galaxy that could stand in its way. The destruction of the Vantari exploration fleet sent shockwaves rippling through the galaxy. Within hours, the news spread like wildfire, carried on encrypted channels and whispered in the halls of power across countless star systems. The Vantari, once considered invincible, had suffered a defeat so total, so unexpected, that it shook the very foundations of galactic politics. The alien species that had long aligned themselves with the Vantari, either out of fear or ambition, now found themselves questioning the wisdom of that alliance. Whispers of doubt turned into murmurs of dissent as the realization dawned. If the Vantari could be defeated so easily, what hope did anyone else have? Panic began to spread as reports of the human fleet's resurgence reached the farthest corners of the galaxy. The Vantari, who had always been the dominant force, now found their power base crumbling. Other species, sensing the shift in power, began to reconsider their loyalties. Some sent out feelers to the newly awakened human fleet, cautiously testing the waters to see if there was a way to align themselves with this rising power. Others, more cautious or fearful, retreated into isolation, hoping to avoid the wrath that the Vantari had so clearly provoked. Within the Vantari leadership, chaos reigned. The once unified council of leaders, who had ruled with an iron fist, was now fracturing under the weight of their own fear and confusion. The sudden reappearance of the human fleet had thrown their carefully maintained order into disarray. The council chambers, once a place of calculated decisions and cold logic, now echoed with arguments and accusations. Different factions emerged, each with its own idea of how to deal with the threat. Some argued for immediate retaliation, calling for the full might of the Vantari armada to be unleashed against the humans. They believed that only by striking back with overwhelming force could they hope to reclaim their dominance. Others, more pragmatic, suggested a cautious approach, perhaps even negotiating with the humans to avoid further conflict. But these voices were drowned out by the rising tide of fear and desperation. The Vantari had always relied on their superiority, and now that it had been challenged, they were at a loss for how to respond. As the leadership floundered, the rest of the galaxy watched in stunned silence. Species that had once lived in fear of the Vantari now saw an opportunity to break free from their grasp. The power vacuum left by the Vantari's sudden weakness threatened to plunge the galaxy into chaos, as old rivalries and ambitions resurfaced. But underlying all of this was a deep, pervasive fear of the unknown power that had suddenly reappeared on the galactic stage. The human fleet, once thought to be a relic of a bygone era, was now revealed to be a force of unimaginable strength. The sheer power and sophistication of their ships, combined with the strategic brilliance embedded in their programming, made them a threat unlike any other. The galaxy was gripped by uncertainty as species scrambled to understand the true scope of the human fleet's capabilities. Rumors spread of entire fleets being destroyed in seconds, of planets laid waste by weapons no one had seen in millennia. The old order was unraveling, and no one knew what would take its place. Amidst this chaos, the human fleet's ultimate objective became clearer. This was not a simple act of vengeance or a quest for power. The humans had returned with a purpose: to re-establish their dominance in the galaxy and to avenge the fall of their ancient empire. The Vantari, in their arrogance, had triggered a force that had been lying in wait, ready to fulfill the final commands of its creators. The human fleet was on a mission to reclaim what had been lost, to restore the glory of a civilization that had been forgotten by all but a few. The fear and uncertainty that gripped the galaxy were compounded by the knowledge that the humans were not interested in negotiations or alliances. They were not looking to share power or coexist with the current rulers of the galaxy. Their objective was clear: to sweep away the old order and rebuild the galaxy in their image. The Vantari, and any who stood with them, would be the first to fall, but they would not be the last. The galaxy was about to undergo a transformation, one that would be as brutal as it was inevitable. The balance of power had shifted, and the galaxy could do nothing but watch as the human fleet began its march across the stars. The ancient empire, long thought dead, had returned, and its wrath was a storm that no one could escape. The Vantari had awakened a sleeping giant, and now, the entire galaxy would pay the price. The human fleet's resurgence was not just a change in power, it was the dawn of a new era, one that would be defined by the iron will and relentless determination of a species that had risen from the ashes of history to reclaim its place among the stars. The human fleet's counteroffensive reached its inevitable conclusion, with the galaxy's once dominant alien species lying in ruins. The Vantari, who had reigned unchallenged for millennia, were now a shattered remnant of their former glory. Their fleets decimated, their worlds in chaos, and their leadership either dead or in hiding, they had no choice but to accept the new reality. Those few who remained attempted to negotiate their survival, but humanity had no interest in maintaining the old order. The ancient empire's vengeance was swift and merciless, leaving no room for the Vantari's continued existence as a ruling power. The final remnants of resistance were crushed, and the galaxy witnessed the definitive end of the Vantari reign. With the last of the Vantari strongholds falling, the human fleet turned its attention to the task of rebuilding the empire that had been lost. The humans, once scattered and forgotten, began to reassert control over key systems across the galaxy. Worlds that had been under the yoke of the Vantari were liberated, their inhabitants offered a choice: join the new order and receive protection and prosperity, or resist and face the consequences. Many chose to align with the humans, recognizing the futility of opposition and the benefits of being part of a revitalized empire. The humans, with their advanced technology and strategic brilliance, began to integrate these worlds into their growing sphere of influence, laying the foundations for a new galactic order. As the humans re-established their dominance, the galaxy took note. Species that had once feared the Vantari now looked to humanity as the new ruling power. The human fleet's sheer force of will and technological superiority earned them both respect and fear. No one dared to challenge the humans, knowing that their fleets could obliterate any opposition with devastating efficiency. The humans, however, were not interested in ruling through fear alone. They sought to build an empire that would endure, one that was founded on loyalty, cooperation, and the shared prosperity of its member worlds. Human leadership, forged in the crucible of ancient wars and preserved through centuries of dormancy, proved to be as effective as it was ruthless. The humans implemented a system of governance that balanced strength with diplomacy. They offered protection to those who pledged loyalty, ensuring that their new empire was built on a foundation of mutual benefit rather than coercion. The galaxy's species, wary of the humans' power but eager to avoid the fate of the Vantari, quickly fell in line. The new empire grew rapidly, its influence spreading across the stars as more and more worlds joined its ranks. In the aftermath of the human fleet's resurgence, the galaxy stood transformed. The old order, with its corruption and arrogance, had been swept away, replaced by a new era under human leadership. The galaxy's inhabitants, once scattered and divided, now found themselves part of a unified empire that promised stability and security. The human fleet, now the undisputed power in the galaxy, continued to expand its reach, consolidating its control over newly acquired territories and ensuring that no threat to their dominance would ever arise again. As the dust settled and the galaxy began to adjust to the new order, reflections on the past and the future became inevitable. The foresight of the ancient human empire, in setting the trap that had lain dormant for millennia, was nothing short of remarkable. Their decision to preserve their most powerful fleet, and program it to awaken only when the time was right, had ensured that their legacy would endure. The galaxy had forgotten the humans, but the humans had not forgotten the galaxy. They had returned with a purpose, and that purpose had been fulfilled. The implications of humanity's return were profound. The galaxy, once ruled by a patchwork of competing species and alliances, was now unified under a single, powerful empire. The humans, with their advanced technology, strategic brilliance, and unyielding determination, had reclaimed their place as the dominant force in the galaxy. The old order had been replaced by a new era, one that was defined by the iron will of humanity, and the lessons learned from the past. As the galaxy moved forward, it was clear that humanity's return marked the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. The humans, once a forgotten relic of a distant past, were now at the center of galactic affairs, guiding the future with a steady hand. The galaxy, once chaotic and divided, was now poised on the brink of a new era, an era of stability, prosperity, and human dominance. The return of the ancient empire was not just a victory for humanity. It was a transformation of the galaxy itself, setting the stage for a future where humanity's influence would be felt for millennia to come.